Welcome to the In Her Financial Shoes podcast with me, Catherine Morgan, the podcast that helps you step into wealth. Deserve it, create it, grow it.
Money profit specifically is not an event, it's a habit. Profit is an accumulation of small little wins that happen every day, every hour, not that just magically fall into your lap. So we need to put the habit in place today.
Like, this isn't the life that I want to live. Like, this is not the path that I want to take. I want to be the master of my ship. I want to control my own destiny.
Who were you before you were their partner, their mother, their colleague, their father?
I'm passionate about helping you to feel confident to transform your relationship with money and take that next step. The question is, are you ready to be that wealthy woman? And remember, it's not about the money. Small steps, big wins. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Oh, I love seeing our little production video. For those of you that are watching us live on socials this morning, do you know the best bit of that video that I love is the woman walking with bare feet through the sea with her backpack on. Like, I just think when we think about that whole, what does a wealthy woman actually look like? You know, I think we should be able to build wealth in flip-flops. I just think it's a brilliant concept. It's actually a massive part of our brand. And very soon you'll see our podcast logo updated with our brand new branding, which we've launched on Instagram last week. And we're launching onto the website next week. And we've got like a little picture of step into wealth with flip-flops, because I just think it's such a beautiful way to think about how we can be that wealthy woman, like not in the typical high heels. And actually, can you see the little logo down here with the flip-flops? There you go. Anyway, good morning to everybody. I'm really super excited this morning because I am here with a very special guest to talk about how astrology and our sun and star signs can actually impact on how we manage money. And I'm really curious to this conversation because I read an article from this amazing lady who I'm going to introduce you to in a second, Eloise Skye. And it really intrigued me for a couple of reasons. A, because I thought it was really clever to think about how we should maybe look at money differently depending on our star signs. And also because I personally have been really quite intrigued to understand more about astrology and my moon signs. And actually, a very good friend of mine for my birthday in December bought me this moon calendar, which I have right on my wall next to me. And I keep looking at it like so pretty, and I have no idea what it means. So one of my team members also bought me a book for my Christmas gift, which was all about how to like understand your moon signs and astrology. And I'm really excited to get to step into this area a lot more for my own personal growth this year. And so I really wanted to bring Eloise to the podcast today to just talk about this subject and open up some conversations about astrology and star signs and moon signs. I don't even really know the difference between them. So I'm just interested to get to dive into this conversation today. And if you are listening live on socials, let me know in the comments, like, is this an area that you are curious to? And let me know, like, how much knowledge and information do you already have about this subject? Because I'm really, really interested in this. So I'm going to bring Eloise onto the screen now. Let me just 1 second. There we go. Good morning, Eloise. Thank you. And welcome to Her Financial Shoes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and I loved your introduction and your kind of explanation about astrology. You're talking to the right person. I'm going to give you clarity around all of those things.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And just to do like an official introduction. So Eloise is an empowerment coach. She's an astrologist and an intuitive guide. So my first question, Eloise, is what is astrology all about, and how do you use it to help empower people with their relationship with money?
All right. So, okay, there's many different approaches to astrology, and there's kind of many different lineages of how to use it. But simplified version is that it is the map of the sky at the time that you were born. And it can tell things about you, about your personality. And I've always been very interested in this. I've always just been really, really drawn to it. And then the deeper in I went, I was like, this is crazy. It's really, really wild. So perhaps when we get a little bit deeper into talking about the signs and things, then we can, you can start to see those connections. But when you look at the birth chart, so you have the birth chart, which is a map of the sky at the time that you were born. You have your sun sign, which is really who you are at your core. You have your moon sign, which is kind of your emotions and what you need to be emotionally fulfilled. And then you have your rising sign, which is kind of how you move out into the world. So they're the main three, right? But there's all of these planets in the sky. So they all basically are in a map relating to each other, doing different things. So you might be a Capricorn sun, for example. Are you a Capricorn, Catherine?
Well, actually, as you're talking, so my best friend actually sent me a message with this graph that she shared with me and telling me what my moon sign was. And she basically told me that, so I'm a Sagittarian, 9th of December is my birthday. Yep. And she's told me that I'm a Gemini ascendant. And what else? She sent me this like picture. Yeah. So apparently I have a Gemini ascendant. My sun sign is Sagittarius, and that's about all I know. Like she sent me this graph.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the charts that I use. Yeah. Okay. Can you find the little moon symbol?
I will. So yeah. So I don't know what my Gemini, so yeah, I'm Gemini.
Your mic has just cut out a little bit there.
Oh, there we go. So my Gemini ascendant and Sagittarius sun.
Right.
My moon sign. What am I looking for on the picture?
A moon symbol, like, it looks like a crescent moon.
Oh yeah. So my crescent moon is tucked up here.
It's tucked up there. Okay. You're a Taurus moon. Okay. I like it.
To write that down. You're going to tell me what that means now.
Yeah, I will. Because when I said if you're a Capricorn, because you mentioned that your birthday's in December, and that's how I work, right? Anytime someone's like telling me their birthday, I'm like, right, you're this sun sign. Capricorns or Earth signs actually tend to be very good with money. They tend to be able to really, like, they're very hardworking, and they like that kind of accumulation of money, we'll call it. Taurus moon is interesting because Taurus likes nice things. So you're probably like you like the fluffy robes and slippers and nice hotels and stuff.
Some of that. I like some of that stuff. I do like it. It definitely brings a lot of calmness for me to be around somewhere beautiful. So it's more about beauty. Like for my 40th, my husband and children bought me this cherry blossom tree picture, which just every time I've seen it online for the last 2 years, it just looks beautiful. So I definitely get a lot of peace and calm from being around beauty, like by the sea, with the sun on my face, like just a lot of beauty.
Yeah. And that makes sense because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Venus is the planet of connection and beauty and art. So art is very important to Taurus and Libra because they're both ruled by Venus. But I guess to kind of circle back to the original question, I do feel like I have a sneeze coming on, so I just need to disclaim that. It's knocking on my door. But so we have the sun and moon and rising, and so you probably maybe have identified as being Sagittarius and be like, oh yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. Sagittarius generally, like, they like adventure, they like experiences. Those are what they value. They also are kind of on like a never-ending quest for truth and knowledge. So they can really kind of find themselves up very high up in academia, or just being those kind of forever roaming, adventuring travelers. So you might see that and be like, yeah, I understand how that kind of relates, but there's also some areas that I'm not like that at all, in which case you look at the other signs and you look at the other things in your chart. So the Gemini rising, the rising sign is like kind of how you come across to other people. So totally makes sense that you have a podcast because Gemini is very chatty. They like connecting with people, they like relating with people, and they like relaying information as well. So yeah, it's all of these different energies.
And how, So when we actually understand what our signs are, like our moon signs, etc., how do we use that information then in our day-to-day lives?
So the way that I like to approach astrology, and we've kind of gone on a tangent, but in terms of like empowering people, like all of this is self-knowledge, right? And so the more that we know about ourselves, the more that we understand ourselves, the more that we are able to understand the decisions that we're making, where they're coming from, and it's quite affirming and quite validating, because sometimes we like fight against it. You know, you might find that with that sort of the Taurus need for like art and beauty and things like that, you could kind of be like, well, you know, that's not practical, that's not like, you know, kind of down in like the day to day. So sometimes we can fight with ourselves and struggle, especially if maybe your sun, your moon, and your rising are if some of them are conflicting. I mean, yours are pretty at peace, but at the same time, Gemini and Sagittarius are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So Gemini is all about information, and Sagittarius is more like depth of knowledge and depth of truth. So that kind of inner struggle that we sometimes feel. And so when it comes to relating to day to day, relating to your money, like for example, when you look at the different profiles of astrology and money, as I'm going to do in your membership, you can say, okay, I understand why sometimes I want to hoard money and I want to accumulate it, and other times I just want to spend it and let it go.
Yeah, there's definitely, I definitely resonate with seeing a lot of that conflict in our relationship with money. And I think it is important, isn't it, to have that balance of sometimes we need to be spontaneous, and sometimes we should put our planning hats on, and sometimes we want to be a bit carefree, and sometimes we want to be giving to our own needs as well as giving to others. There's always this kind of conflict and balance between those different approaches to money. And I'm really curious as well to like the science you mentioned, like the science behind this, because a lot of the modalities that I'm qualified in are very science rooted.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear a bit more about like, what's the science behind astrology?
Well, that could be debatable, because it's like astrologers are like, yes, astrology is so closely related to astronomy, and astronomers are like, we don't know those people. They just want to disown it because it is considered to be a pseudoscience, right? But there's this very fascinating book of this guy who's a scientist, and he basically set out, you know, with kind of, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I'm just going to set out and see what these things mean and how related they are. And he was looking at all of the patterns in astrology and astronomy and relating that to world events. So sometimes it is like you cannot make up this stuff with different things that are happening. So it's a really interesting book, because he really at the end of the day is like, well, you know, I can see that there's some merit to this. But if you think of it as, I see it as being a channeled system, because it's a very, very ancient art. It's from like before the Greeks, like before the Romans, like everyone, you know, in these like primitive times, sitting around a fire, just looking up at the stars and being like, what is this? What is going on here? And so they started, this is kind of a simplification, but they kind of started to assign these characters to the planet. So, you know, Mars is the warrior, Venus is kind of the lover, the connector, the moon is the feminine, the sun is our identity. And so they were all, it's all kind of like maps that onto this sort of this dramatic play. And so you have some planets that maybe don't get along so well, or can maybe cause tension when they're together, or, you know, might bring chaos. Pluto tends to be a planet that brings a lot of transformation, whether or not we're ready for it. Uranus brings a lot of upheaval. So when those planets visit our natal chart, we can really experience a lot of things to do with the planets and to do with those energies. So it's really, I see it as being a channel system that then you can kind of apply to your life and understand why things are happening, and also understand how to move forward. You know, if you're a sign that is, for example, Pisces is a very, very, very compassionate sign. the most compassionate sign of the zodiac. And because they want to give so much to other people, they can struggle with boundaries. So it's understanding every single sign has a highest and lowest expression. We all kind of have these pitfalls that we can find ourselves in. Every single sign, has lessons to learn in this lifetime. The chart can also tell you a lot about your karmic lessons. Some people, for example, will have Saturn, which is where it is in our chart, is where we need to learn lessons. Saturn in the second house is to do with our assets and resources and money. So that's also something that I look at when looking at people's financial situations. If you've got Saturn in the second house, you've got a lot of lessons to learn about not only managing your own resources, but about valuing yourself, because the second house is about material resources and it's about value as well. So how we value ourselves. And I'm sure that that through your work, everything starts with us. Everything starts with how we value ourselves. And it really just goes
the money.
Exactly. It's never about the money, right? And I love that. I love that you've called your book that, because it's these things and these tools of self-knowledge like astrology, maybe numerology, other things like that. We can understand that, okay, this is why I keep coming up against these blocks. This is why I keep coming up against it. This is why I feel like maybe you might feel like people keep taking advantage of you in a financial situation and financial capacity. Maybe you feel like you've, you keep kind of not getting what is owed to you, something like that. And that can be a karmic lesson. That can be something that we need to really overcome, whether that's by empowering ourselves to set better boundaries, whether that is by, having those experiences and being able to see the red flags further away until they've passed us by. So yeah, does that answer your question? Sorry, I went off.
Do you know? No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you know I sat there listening to you, thinking that I can see this definitely as a way as well of giving people that level of safety and security, almost like knowing that this is happening for a reason, but also getting them to think forward about, well, what do I actually need to work on and focus on? And I think a lot of people get lost with that. A lot of people get lost in, well, where do I even get started? And like somebody who's listening on live right now has asked, like her Saturn is in the first house. Like, what does that mean? Like, how should she manage money if Saturn is in the first house?
Well, I would say that Saturn isn't a planet that really has anything to do with your financial situation. It's more of the houses. So your first house is to do with yourself and your identity. So having Saturn in there, you might feel like there's some kind of restriction to do with, it could be self-expression. It could be to do with your identity, and kind of, because the first house is how you move out into the world. I would be curious what sign is in your second house. So if you can answer that, then I can give you a little bit more information. But you're absolutely spot on that it can help us to understand how we need to invest in the future. Like, I am a Capricorn sun and we want to hold on to money. And actually, when we do that, we can't let it go. We can't let it circulate. So even though most of the other signs are like, rein in your spending here, don't spend too much on this, like people will love you, it doesn't matter about your bank account. For a Capricorn, it's like, just release the purse strings, just let it go, which is hilarious to me. And, I also have some other conflicting energies. So sometimes I do just splurge on things. So it's understanding what energies at play and how that's showing up in your life. And also, I really like to use astrology as a tool for not only compassion for ourselves and understanding for ourselves, but for other people, because I'm sure you come up against this a lot, is money is like the number one thing that couples argue about. It's so common. So when you can understand your partner's money profile, even their signs, even their astrology, then you can be like, okay, so you're a Taurus moon, so you're going to want to go on the nice holidays. Maybe you might be with a partner who just really wants to kind of slum it, and like that's the adventure for them, and they like that. So it's finding that compromise between the two.
Yeah, I love that. I was literally having this conversation with a group that I was presenting in last night about how to have better conversations with your partner. And actually, we have a podcast episode coming up around Valentine's Day, specifically on that subject. So stay tuned for some more tips on that subject.
Yes.
It's definitely true is that once you start to understand the differences between your values, particularly, and your energy around money, that can definitely help to unlock some healthier conversations, not just with yourself, but with other people, whether that's your partners or even your friendship groups, for example. And I'm really curious to this word energy, Eloise, because up until last year, I always found like conversations around energy and money quite woo-woo. And I've always said that I have a little bit of woo-woo deep down inside me that tries to come out quite a lot. And I try and like push it down because I like things that are very based in, very factual, very science-based. And last year I was exposed to numerology, which I literally plan my entire business now on around my numerology. So this year I'm stepping into an 8th year, which is wealth and success. And I have a lot of 6 energy in my name, which is all to do with connection, collaboration, community. And I've really stepped into that in the last year. And it's been like profoundly significant for me. Whether that's because of the science behind it, like I know the Queen, for example, she uses numerology to plan dates for, like her coronation was planned around numerology, lots of really fascinating methodologies behind it. But this energy I'm really curious to, because definitely for me, when I am curious to my own energy levels and I think about how I run my business around those energy cycles, it really helps and supports me as a CEO of my business. And so the question I would love to ask you is like maybe something that's coming up, like we're currently recording this like mid-January, but what is coming up for us from an energy cycle perspective that we can start to think about and how we use that to step more into a place of trust in our own sense of self and our own belief and worth? I'd love to just know a little bit more about that energy side for you around astrology.
Yeah, I think I think what you're kind of asking me about is like what's coming up astrologically in terms of transit, like what is happening in the sky that is going to affect us. And one of the big things, you see a lot of things on social media about Mercury retrograde, and I don't really worry about those too much because what astrology does is like everything that comes up, everything that comes into our lives, everything that leaves our lives, it's things that are ultimately not working for us, things that leave, and then they make way for things that are better. So we have the eclipse axis, which has changed from Gemini and Sagittarius. Actually, this is quite interesting for you because you are on the Gemini Sagittarius axis with your sun and your rising. And so the eclipses bring a lot of change in our lives to do with where those signs are in our chart. So they've been in Gemini and Sagittarius. So you might have had a lot of change to do with your identity and also your relationships because your sun is, I would suspect, in your 7th house, depending on the system that you're using, the way that it draws the charts. And then now it's moving into Taurus and Scorpio. So there's going to be a lot of things kind of coming and going to do with, well, for starters, where Taurus and Scorpio are in your chart because they're on an axis again, but also to do with Taurus and Scorpio themes. So we're kind of moving more toward Taurus themes. And again, your moon is here, so it might get activated by these eclipses, which is really about nature. It's about beauty. It's about practical. It's about values as well. And then the South Node is in Scorpio, which is moving away from Scorpio energies, which is really to do with, the South Node is to do with things that kind of leave our lives, things that we're kind of like, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. And Scorpio is to do with kind of, I'm like, how do I put this? Like things that are buried, things that are hidden. Scorpio is very transformational. So people who have Scorpio energy tend to not be afraid to go into things that are taboo. They're happy to do the inner work. They're even happy to, like, you know, reach into the sewer and like grab the keys that you dropped or whatever it is. Like, they're just like, okay, like, whereas a lot of the rest of us are like, oh no, I don't want to do that. So it's kind of like really a purge of a lot of energetic gunk and things like that, which I know that's a little bit abstract, but I'd be interested to see where this is kind of happening in your chart and in your life, because that's also where big changes is going to happen. Because on that zodiac wheel that you showed me before, we have 12 houses and they all represent a different area of our life. So the first house is the self. Seventh house, directly opposite, is our committed partnerships. It's our relationship. So you can see it's the axis between the self and the other. We have home, we have career, and many others as well.
So specifically around money then, if anyone's listening to this and wondering, like, I'm really curious to know, how does my sign affect my relationship with money? Is there anything here that I haven't asked you, Eloise, that you could share with our listeners today that would be helpful for them to discover for themselves?
I think that, I mean, I am going to share more of this. So if you come and follow me on Instagram and all of those things, then I am going to put something together around this. But I really think that it's important to not use this to bypass, right? You can't be like, I'm a Libra, I like spending money, so it's okay. Like, you know, as I said, it's a tool for self-awareness. And, you know, myself as a Capricorn, I'm not using it as an excuse to hoard things. I'm using it as that knowledge to understand how I need to approach money, because, as I said, it needs to get circulated. So it's just important not to over-identify with it. There's lots of different things that happen in a chart. There's lots of different things. We all carry multiple energies, so you might not strictly resonate with your sun sign. So it's a little bit tricky for me to be like, well, this is your sun, this is your moon. Like, this is just how it is, because it's much more nuanced than that. But for example, like if you're a fire sign, you're probably very creative, and fire signs do tend to, they can be impulsive, right?
What are fire signs? Which part of the zodiac are the fire signs?
So fire signs is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius.
Okay.
And they're very action oriented, right? Because you think of that like fire energy. Air signs, which are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they're all about the intellect. So Gemini is very, very intellectual. Libra is as well, and so is Aquarius. And they're probably more likely to think things through, but they're all driven by different things. Gemini is driven by information. Libra is driven by connection and harmony. So Libra can sometimes get themselves into financial trouble because they're just like, I just want all of the nice things. I like it, so I'm going to buy it, right? And they're not really turning that off. Gemini gets buyer's remorse. Aquarius tends to not, they're kind of like the revolutionary. So they tend to not really care about money too much. But, you know, you kind of need to care about money because you need to respect it, because if you're just whatever about it, then it's not going to, you're not going to be able to use it as a tool, right? And then we have water signs, which are very flowy. They're all to do with the emotions. So if you're a Pisces, that they can, similar to Aquarius, they can be very like money comes, money goes, whatever. Like Pisces tend to be very creative, but they can buy into the starving artist mentality, right? Of being like, money's a sign of corruption, blah, blah, blah. But if you can change that mindset and see it as something like, the more money that you have, the more people you can help, the more people you can serve. Because like I said before, Pisces, is a very compassionate sign, and they want to help everyone. So the more money you have, the more people you can help. And then Cancer is a very nurturing energy. So they are really all about making sure that everyone's sorted. So sometimes they can find themselves bailing people out because they're like a real mama bear energy. So they just want to care for people. So boundaries is really important for Cancer. For Scorpio, they're very magnetic. They also like power. So they can use money as something for power. So they can want to share money with people because, you know, that can kind of bring that sort of balance in those dynamics. And then finally, where are we at? Earth, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. So as I said, Capricorns, they do tend to want to hoard money. Taurus is pretty okay because they have that balance between hard work, and they also have that balance between liking nice things. So they can get too fixed on the work side of things, but they know that sooner or later they're going to be like, I just need to play, I just need to have fun, I just need to relax, give myself some reward for the hard work that I've been doing. And then Virgo have a very high attention to detail. So they will spot any punctuation error anywhere. So anytime I do a presentation, I'm like, okay, Virgos, tell me where I need to run my punctuation check again. But with that, they can kind of count every penny. They're like, I need to know where everything's going, all the spreadsheets, all the budgets, and that's good. But we need to know when that is getting in the way of us having fun. Sometimes you just need to be like, you know what? I don't know where that money went, and that's okay. And this is advice to every different sign, because if I said that to a Libra, if I said, don't worry about budgeting, like, it would be a disaster.
And a lot of that, though, I think is about stepping into trust. Is that sometimes if that's our natural go-to way of managing money, then it's okay to step into that at times. And it's okay to step into another energy with money. And that's what I love about this. This is what I love about numerology. I love about what you just shared with us, Eloise. And one of my masterminders, Kelly, who's watching us live at the moment, she says, I'm a Pisces, is my sign at birth. I'm a Gemini. And she's put, yep, I buy and then hide. Help, Catherine. So maybe you should come into our mastermind this year, and we can help, to look at specifically around our charts, like how should we be managing money? Because one of the things that we're doing in our mastermind, for example, in the Wealthy Woman experience, is we're going to be investing collaboratively as a community of leaders. So we're going to be putting together some money, like even if it's like £100 each, and collectively investing that into causes that we support. Because one of the areas that I'm very passionate about is helping to support projects and causes that align with our values. So when I go out to Necker Island in September with Sir Richard Branson, I want to be able to, almost go with some money and say, look, where can we invest this to support the growth of the things that we value the most and that we care for the most in the world. So that's really harnessing that giving relationship with money and with wealth. So I'm quite interested in, again, how individually we can start to really step into our astrology chart. I don't even know whether I've got that description right there, but, just really stepping in and harnessing that for ourselves.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that, Eloise. I know you're coming into our group later, so I know you're going to dive a little bit deeper into that with our Money Circle members later this afternoon. So thank you so much for your time today. And if anyone wants to find out more about their astrology chart, I'll definitely be contacting you. Where's the best place for them to connect with you?
So you can find me via my website, which is eloiseskye.com. So it's SKYE, which, would you believe it, is my actual middle name.
That's so appropriate for your job, isn't it?
It is. I had a different business name until recently, and then I was like, what am I even doing? So it's eloiseskye.com. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at Eloise_Skye. So get in touch, send me a DM. I'm fairly active on those things. And as I said before, I do share these things. And because I've been thinking about this a lot lately as well, it is something that's kind of coming up a lot on my posts and things.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And do drop me a DM on Instagram as well. Let me know whether you resonate with any of those descriptions of how maybe you are around money based on your star sign. So I'd love to know. Just drop me a DM on Instagram too. And I can always share that feedback as well with Eloise. So thank you so much for tuning in today on the In Financial Shoes podcast. And we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care, guys.